Uh-oh. The press is mad. They're mad at Jordan Peterson for misgendering Jazz Jennings. For those of you who aren't familiar, and I'm sure most of you are, Jazz Jennings is the famous transgender reality TV star. In a recent article titled The Tragedy of Jazz Jennings, Spiked Online documents the life of Jazz from a critical point of view. And it's actually, in my opinion, rather horrifying. I think there are a lot of things to be brought up about Jazz Jennings. The child abuse, I think, is obvious and ongoing. I know Jazz is an adult now, but this still happened in Florida. And typically you watch these videos, law enforcement should intervene. Oh, but the media is oh so angry. Newsweek writes, Jordan Peterson has divided users on social media platform X after misgendering YouTuber Jazz Jennings. YouTuber Jazz Jennings? Do you know who Jazz Jennings is? Jazz Jennings is not a YouTuber. Conservative influencer Peterson quoted an article by British online magazine Spiked Online, written by Malcolm Clark, that had the headline, The Tragedy of Jazz Jennings. The post pulls in Clark's words and reads, quote, The plight of Jazz Jennings reveals the cruelty of gender-affirming care. This young reality TV star will never have a normal life. Hormones and puberty blockers are doing irreversible damage to kids, says Malcolm Clark. Peterson captioned his retweet, Never forgive his mother. I'm just going to pause right there. Who does his refer to? Newsweek. Maybe Jordan Peterson meant Malcolm Clark, who's a man, right? I got you there. You assumed the gender of Jazz Jennings without asking. Now, let's be real. We know Jordan Peterson was referring to Jazz Jennings, who's biologically male, as a him. Multiple social media users called him out, correcting Jazz's pronoun and said her. One questioned, can you just not hit return when you tweet? Some of his followers misgendered the influencer in their replies and agreed with Peterson's comment on the mother figure being to blame. Newsweek has reached out to Peterson and Jennings representatives for email comment. Why? It's so dumb. Jennings is a transgender activist whose show I Am Jazz documented her journey and day-to-day life in Florida with her family. The 22-year-old published a book of the same title called I Am Jazz. In June this year, the star conducted a virtual book reading at a Pottery Barn store, which caused a stir among conservative customers, with many opting to boycott the brand, and you should. The children's book, I Am Jazz, tells the real-life story of the influencer who was assigned male at birth. Let me just pause right there and say, observed to be male by a doctor, and diagnosed with gender dysphoria at the age of 4. Peterson had commented on the LGBT plus community before, and we get it. We understand what's going on. All right. I got another story for you guys, because it's not all bad news. California mom Jessica Conan settles landmark victory against Spreckles Union School District for $100,000 after she claims her daughter was socially transitioned. This is interesting. Jessica Conan's daughter, Alicia, 11, was allegedly told by Buena Vista Middle School that Spreckles that she was upset because she didn't know who she truly was inside. The school allowed the child to use the boys' bathroom and male pronouns in class without the mom's consent. Now, all of a sudden, Daily Mail has decided to opt for the female pronouns for the female. Now, why would this child say they don't know who they are inside? Perhaps because the school is confusing them. Single mom Conan accused teachers of encouraging her daughter to think she was a trans boy when she was at the school in 2019, only for the child to return to her female persona while learning remotely during the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite not admitting fault, the Spreckles Union School District settlement marks an important moment in the debate across the U.S. about how parental rights fit in with children's decision in school settings. Conan launched a legal claim against the school and 2 7th grade teachers in 2021, claiming they kept her daughter's phony trans identity a secret from her and hid that she had been having suicidal thoughts. The child is now attending high school in another district and has re-identified as a girl. I'm going to break this down for you. I will try to be as respectful as possible. I fear for Jazz Jennings. I believe that without actual governmental intervention to take Jazz out of this abusive environment, Jazz is at high risk for suicide. I believe there needs to be some intervention to protect Jazz. I believe that if Jazz Jennings went through male puberty, Jazz would likely just be a typical adult male. And I believe that the family intervened for monetary and political gain, based on everything I've read. I could be wrong, but that's just how I feel about the scenario. What we know when looking at the data is that children desist not detransition, desist. Desistance is when a child will express a opposite gender identity or wear the opposite gender's clothes, and then after reaching puberty, stop doing it and just go on to identify as their biological sex. The estimates are between 65 and like 90 some odd percent, 93. It's some ridiculously large number. It's like 67, maybe to like 95. The overwhelming majority of trans children, according to the data, when going through their natural puberty, will identify with their biological sex. Understand this. If the rate of suicide among transgender individuals is high, and what do they say? It's around 47%. And the likelihood of a child desisting is even higher. Do the math. If you transition a child, you are putting them into a category with an abnormally high rate of suicide. If you let them go through the natural puberty, the likelihood is, basic math, they will be okay. So why do we allow this to persist? Why do we allow shows like I Am Jazz to continue without there being some kind of outrage? If you take a look at the story of Jazz Jennings, you can see that it's substantially worse than most people let on. Jazz was supposed to go to college. Didn't. Became seriously depressed after 3 botched genital surgeries to create I don't know what you would call it. They like to call it a neo-vagina. I don't like that news speak, right? The purpose of the surgery that Jazz undergoes is to create an orifice by which another individual can engage in sexual activities for pleasure. That is not, right, what female parts are for. Female parts incorporate pleasure for sure, but it's also about pregnancy and reproduction. Here's what I think. I hope that Jazz gets help, because when you look at the show and you look at these clips, you have a mother that says, "Why aren't you dilating?" Jazz clearly does not want to. This is the process by which you use a tool, lubricated, to expand the orifice that was surgically created. Jazz clearly does not want to do this. Jazz's mother insists that Jazz do it, or she will do it for you by force. Jazz becomes depressed, can't go to college, becomes morbidly obese, says that I don't feel like, that's a quote, I don't feel like myself. I have to wonder why that is. Perhaps it's because your life is controlled and you have been put in a position you never should have been put in. When you look at these stories and you look at the article from Spiked Online about Jazz struggling to date, the risk is clear. Jazz exists in a kind of social limbo where far left activists will sing their praises but not go anywhere near dating Jazz. Jazz can go and try to be with any typical adult male, but they're going to say the same thing. There's no attraction. And I'll break down why I think why. Jazz will likely have to find a very, very small community of individuals to actually date from. The overwhelming majority of males and females in the world are heterosexual and heteronormative, as the left would describe it. That means that a man wants to be with a woman, a woman wants to be with a man, a male with a female, female with a male. They try to redefine these words, but the social construct means nothing. I wonder how much they consider this. Smell. I remember, and I like to cite The Science of Sex, a documentary series I saw on HBO a long time ago. I think it was HBO. Maybe it was Showtime. I don't know. And they had a bunch of guys run on treadmills. Got real sweaty. They then took the shirts off these men and put them in jars. They then had a bunch of women come into the room, and they were told to sniff each shirt and say whether they thought it smelled good or bad. Here's the amazing thing. Women who smelled the shirts, they don't know where the shirts came from. It was just numbered jars. All of the women, when they smelled the shirt of a family member, said it was gross. Non-family members, they would say, like, this one smells kind of good, because smell matters in sexual attraction. And they were saying at the time, and the science may have changed, that our smell gives us information on the immune system. Don't know if that's still the case. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But smell matters. Jazz Jennings is a biological male, and even with female hormones, is going to be giving off a unique smell. So what do you think is going to happen? There have been many instances where Jazz has tried to date a guy and he said, well, let's just be friends. You're so unique. And Jazz says, it's so hard dating as a trans person. I wish people would just see me as a woman. Impossible. Because I believe it's fair to say, in all likelihood, a biological male, even undergoing puberty blockers and receiving cross-sex hormones, will likely not have a female pheromone scent. Why? I do not believe, assuming pheromones play a big role, maybe they don't, but I believe that it's likely the smell that is emitted from a male will be male. Now, maybe there are people that are attracted to both. There are. Jazz is going to have to find someone who has those, those predilections. That's going to be very, very difficult. More importantly, your average male is not going to want to be with someone who can't have a family. I say average male. There are certainly many men who don't want to have kids. There are certainly many women who can't have kids, and they find happy relationships. But most men, they want to have families. You can't have a family with Jazz Jennings. That's why I'm worried about these individuals, and I hope something is done to protect them. We'll see. I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up tonight at 6 p.m. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.